You ready to transform your life from the inside out? Join Tasha Young on Elevation Nation, your guide to total wellness and personal evolution. You are about to discover powerful strategies for healing across 7 essential dimensions: physical vitality, emotional balance, mental clarity, financial freedom, social connection, sexual wellness, and intellectual growth. This is more than self-help. It's self-elevation. Watch Elevation Nation with Tasha Young, exclusively on Black Westchester Magazine, the news from the Black point of view. Your journey to wholeness starts now.
You twins? Nah, we cousins.
Hello, hello, good people.
Yeah.
Peace and blessings, everybody.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings, my dear brother.
Peace and blessings.
I'm so glad we're together because Ryan Coogler has done something seismic.
Yes.
We are gathered here today, dearly
We're
beloved.
gathered here today on this joyous occasion. Okay, I'm sorry.
To celebrate the creative genius that is Ryan Coogler, the success of his latest project, Sinners, the acting prowess of the entire cast. Like, nobody was a slouch with acting. And really to talk about it, I think we have witnessed a seismic shift, a paradigm shift, much like how we experienced Black Panther. With the symbolism, with Black culture. And I just thank you guys for coming on and doing a special, discussion about this film, Sinners. So welcome to Elevation Nation, everybody. Let's get into it. This is going to be spoiler. This is going to contain spoilers for the movie. So we just want to say that if you don't want to be spoiled, you should go see the movie and then come back to this recording.
Absolutely.
So when you talk about seismic shift, and not only did it kill in the box office, but I was just reading, it had the lowest drop from first to second week since Avatar.
What?
like that usually you get that big week and then there's a drop. This had it had the lowest drop or something like that. I believe since like Avatar or something like that. Like
I mean, seismic. Like
AP says Sinners bites off a phenomenal second weekend as a 20-year-old Star Wars movie takes second place. Star Wars. So it's hanging out there with Star Wars and Avatar and stuff like that.
I'm gonna get excited, so I have to temper my excitement. So would you say that this film is a horror film?
So it's deeper than that. It's deeper than just a horror film. It's a connection of a lot of things. Like, he combined a lot of elements. He took the spirituality and religion of several things and traditions, Native Americans, African American culture, voodooism, which unlike what people in America think was an actual West African religion, and even the Ku Klux Klan, which is a mix of white Protestant nationalism and moral plurality. And that was the only thing that they really said was bad. Like, and it was a good versus evil, that whole thing where it was a symbolic resolution. This is what I wrote. That's the notes I just wrote. Symbolic resolution of the internal conflict we all have inside. You know what I'm saying? And it combined all of that, and then combined it also visually connected generations of Black music from the 30s, from African dances and African drums to DJs to like Jimi Hendrix / Bootsy Collins type electric guitarists, like, and combined all of that And that's what, as a music head, that's really what inspired me the most to come home and start writing. Just that connection of blues being born in that area of the Mississippi Delta, and its roots from Africa, and how it birthed everything from rock and roll, soul, hip hop, and everything, jazz, all of that, bebop, everything. So I'm going to be writing about that. But this movie combines most people, it's deeper than they think. Most people are not going to catch it. Most people are not going to get it. Even the use of the vampires had to do with white people's parasitic relationship to black artists.
So that's a lot, right? So do we say this film does not fit into a genre?
I think it would be hard to go ahead, Damon. Damon's going to say something. Your mic, are you muted or something?
We can't hear you, Damon.
Your mouth is moving, no words is coming out.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
You could say it's a horror film, but the symbolism that's around the horror, right? I mean, the horror of, because remember, the main antagonist wanted their culture. He wanted their music. He wanted their culture. He wanted their rhythm. And the only way he could get it was to turn them into vampires, because remember, they were all connected. Their memories, their experiences, everything was connected. So he wanted that. And basically, every white person wants that from black people.
Yeah,
and they control our culture. They're literally vampires of our culture.
You saw what Delroy Lindo said in the movie Delta Slim. He said, "Oh, they love our blues. They just don't like the people who made it."
Exactly.
That's a quote from the movie. So
yeah, exactly. So I think the horror, the horror of it was realizing that our spirituality, our culture, how we related to each other as black people, even how we loved each other as black people, because you had, I would Smoke or Stack that was in love. They all was in love. Both the brothers were in love.
Yeah.
So it was just everything that we had, the vampire leader wanted. And if you take it and you put it in a mirror to society and what we have, everything we have, the white man wants to use it for his benefit. And he does. He uses our music. He uses our culture. He uses all that.
Culture vultures.
Yeah. Well, the culture vultures, absolutely. But they own it, and they wanted, and you know what was crazy? What he said was, if there's a certain freedom of them owning it, right? That's what they tell artists. That's what they tell these basketball players. That's what they tell. Oh, it's you're free in a certain way, but you're not. You're tied into that system that he created, because remember, they all was connected. So I think what Ryan Coogler was saying, from my personal experiences in watching that movie, is that we are culturally rich, but they're sucking the blood out of our culture that we don't even control. And I think even in real life, when he talked about the contract that he negotiated for that movie, he just didn't want to put it in the movie. He wanted to make an example out, even him owning the rights after 25 years, owning 100% of the rights of the movie.
All right, so I'm still on the box office. So we were talking about how this movie is on par with Star Wars, with Avatar, which are very clear genre films, right? Fantasy, sci-fi. And this particular movie definitely blew all the horror movies out the window for second weekend. Probably blew out so many other, very popular, very well-attended movies, and created something that we can say is genreless. Because yes, vampires are in there. And it was about the actual vampirism, right? Sucking blood, and the metaphorical vampirism. So I just, I just am celebrating the fact that this was an exploration into our culture. There's a scene in the movie, hopefully you'll go see it. I've seen it 4 times, when they're in a juke joint and there's a musical performance. And the first time I saw it, like when I first saw that scene, I didn't know what to expect, of course. And then you start seeing imagery and you're like, wait a minute, did I just see? Wait a minute, did I see? Like, I remember seeing somebody voguing in that scene. And you know that we're in 1930s Mississippi and we're talking about the blues, but the way he connected back to our past, the blues of the present, and then went into the future, like, mesmerizing.
That's what inspired me to come home and write. That scene, that exact scene, is what inspired me to write, and how our music is always transcending. And blues, now I'm gonna lose some people. Music is spiritual. The effect of music is spiritual. The effect of the blues was spiritual. Blues music was associated with freedom. Again, with the word freedom, but freedom from slavery, freedom for racism. Those were some of the themes. That was the thing. And for Sammy, for the main character, Preacher Boy, it represented a freedom from his father and his ultra religious upbringing. You know what I'm saying? That was his freedom of that. And there's something I want to say, because there's been, and I made sure I wrote this down. So a lot of people, because of this music, and it was mostly done by Black people, white people called it devil music.
Okay.
And the story of Sammy, Preacher Boy, was based on the King of Delta Blues, Robert Johnson, who was said to have sold his soul to the devil. But it wasn't the devil, it was the Papa Legba, the gatekeeper between the human spirit from Africa, that represented in the voodoo world, who he wasn't selling his soul, he was searching wisdom. And it's the misunderstanding of that culture that we identify words like, oh, it's demonic, it's evil, anything that's not the way we want it to be in this country, with a Christian narrative and stuff, is evil. Voodooism was a West African religion for years before there was America. You know what I'm saying? So some of the things, and it's been altered, and there's been some evil, but there's been evil stuff done in the name of Christianity too. So let's not get that twisted. You know what I'm saying?
So right. So Papa Legba. So when we think about
it's spelled just so it's Papa, P-A-P-A, Papa, and then Legba, L-E-G-B-A. He's the gatekeeper between the human and the spirit world. And you can look that up yourself and find out all about that. But that essence is not the devil. Right.
Well, so that's African traditional spirituality, right? And when we think about colonization, because I think what also I'm picking up from Ryan Coogler every time he puts like pen to paper is this idea of rejecting colonization. I mean, even in Black Panther, when the white guy got to Wakanda, he was like, no colonizer, we don't do that here. And, to take African traditional practices, and I want to also say there's a difference between voodoo and hoodoo.
Right. That's exactly, I wanted to do that too.
And in the movie, we saw hoodoo.
It was hoodoo. She was into hoodoo. Yeah.
Yeah, to make that distinction,
And
because
they associate both of them together, because if you look it up, it'll say voodoo and then it'll say also hoodoo, but they are actually two different things. Voodoo is American made. Hoodoo is where it comes from. Voodoo is the American version, of watered down version of whatever, however you want to explain it. I'm not an expert, but voodoo is American made. Hoodoo is from Africa.
like the blues, right? Like in that scene, we saw him go back to Africa, to the griots. And they had, you know, the little, whatever, the ukulele looking like instrument, because like one of the characters, Delroy Lindo's character, Delta Slim, he said, no, we brought this with us from Africa. We brought this with us, just like that hoodoo. We brought that with us from Africa. So in the process of being colonized and, you know, indoctrinated, because that is what it is when you accept doctrine, everything that we might have had intuitively passed down was now not the right thing to follow. And who determined that for us? Was it us?
Right, I was gonna say, you said we were indoctrinated. They beat that out of us. They forced their religion and they beat any essence of ours out of us. It wasn't like we made a collective decision to agree to that. It was, you didn't really have a choice if you wanted to live. Like they beat that out of you. And it was illegal to do anything other than what they wanted you to do. So all the rest of that was illegal and demonic and all that. And up to today, those terms still apply.
That's my point, right? Like, so if we couldn't do, but first of all, there's always been resistance. Like it, you know, the way we get told history, it's so whitewashed, you know, that you might think that Black people were just like, okay, I'm just gonna go along to get along so I don't get beaten, which was the case. But we also maintain threads of our culture from Africa, and that's across the whole diaspora. You know, whether
we hit it. We hit it. We hit it in gospel music. We hit it. We hit it in slave working songs.
Blues.
Right. We hit it in all, you know,
hip hop.
Yeah, but you know, from slavery, like we just hit it, and we couldn't come out with it because we got killed. You know, so we
speaking code, right?
Exactly. So we had to speak in code, and you know, and that's the whole thing. Like, you know, Black people have to have the talk, right? And when these white liberals stole woke from us, you know, we used to leave the house. They used to tell them, stay woke. This shit these white folks talking about is not what we were talking about.
That's
you
right.
know, let's just be honest about it.
That's
you know?
right. That's right.
And so like we had to do so much, you know, even pretend that we were white.
Oh, we can talk about that.
I had an uncle living in Verplanck. Verplanck, right here in Westchester County, used to be a sundown town.
Oh wow!
You better not got caught in Verplanck, right here in Westchester, right before Peekskill, right there. You would have got done. And I had an uncle lived in Verplanck, and they thought he was white. He passed for white for years.
He was passing. Mm-hmm.
He passed for white for years.
Yep.
Until even one of my captains who live in Verplanck, and I asked him if he knew him, and he said, "Yeah, I know, old man." I said, "Yeah, he's my uncle." And his eyes got real wide, like, "What?" You know, I said, "Yeah, you didn't know he was Black, did you?" You know,
in my book, Celebrating Black Women in Westchester, the first Black woman in soap opera is from Westchester, and she looked white, and she had a 4 or 5 year run before they found out she was Black, and then she was fired. They found out she was Black, but then she got brought back again because she was just a popular character. But she, for 4 or 5, they didn't know she was Black.
Wow.
But those are the things. Those are the things we had to do to survive. Like,
Well, and we resisted the whole time. Like people, like I've been doing a lot of research, and I know we're talking about sinners in the 30s, but like people don't realize how brutal those times were. Like even in the movie, when you see Smoke had shot those guys, like that were robbing him, like it was brutal. It was brutal. And what we experienced, the chain gangs were depicted. We always resisted. Some of it was hidden and some of it was straight in their face. Like when the brother said, if you come on my property, I'm shooting on sight.
Once you take this money, don't you come back again. I'm putting you down. Like you and your clan buddies come up here after I give you this money. Yeah, I'm shooting on sight. And he pulled out that Gatling gun and he put them all down.
He also talked about killing his father. Smoke killed their father because the father was so violent to Stack, because Stack was the twin that killed his wife. So these are brutal, very violent times, and we were coming out of that when we were enslaved during this time, which is the Black Codes time. Domestic terror all over the place all the time, and Black people resisted. We resisted.
So going back to the name of the movie, Sinners, for all my Christian brothers and sisters.
Yeah, and at the bottom it says,
Christ tells us we're all sinners.
That's right.
And there was a scripture that Preacher Boy's father had him read, Sammy's father had him read in Corinthians, and it talks about like there will always be sin, and I'm paraphrasing, and God will always give you a way out of that sin, but if you make that choice, he will be with you to endure. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And that was a powerful message because, like, there are certain, like I said, we all have the internal good and bad in us, that fight that goes on all the time inside of us. We saw several people who chose a sin or so. Both Sammy and Stack both committed adultery with married women. You know what I'm saying? That's a sin. You understand what I'm saying? Some people making that choice, Sammy making that choice to not put the guitar down and to leave his father's church and follow his career, that was a choice. Yeah. Some people would say that was sin. You know what I'm saying? Like, and his father warned him from going to the juke joint with his cousins, and he experienced a lot of things that he normally wouldn't experience, including that adultery situation that he had. But we all, every day, we make choices. And we deal with, some are small sins, some are bigger sins, some we use stuff like, oh, that's just a white lie. That's a lie. Thou shalt not lie. It's a command. So we all sin. We are all sinners and fall short. And I'm saying this specifically to my Christian brothers and sisters, because a Christian sister that I had contacted, when I'm in New Rochelle, I let all my New Rochelle people know I'm going to be there. So they want to get a book or something, and when I come out the movie, I let them know. So the person said, what are you going to see? And I said, Sinners. And they said, that's about witchcraft, right? And I said, yeah, I heard some stuff. This is what, I was saying, we gave Tasha a show. This is what she wanted us to do. So I'm here to see the movie. She was like, oh, tell Tasha to pick another movie, to another topic. And she was like, yo, you're still going even after you've been warned? I'm worried for your soul.
Warned?
So I was saying, my response was, one, I'm prayed and covered. And it was like, okay. My second response was, if a 3-hour movie can undo my faith and my spirituality, then it wasn't really that strong to begin with.
Right. So I definitely want to talk about that. And I want to go back to the white passing also, because there's two love interests. There's several, actually. There's several love interests. But for the twins, which were played by Michael B. Jordan, brilliantly. Like, even to the facial, like one twin was brooding and always like kind of frowned up, and looked like an older Michael B. Jordan, and then the younger twin, not even the younger twin, but he was a younger twin.
No, he
but
was.
He looked younger.
That's
He
right.
looked
Stack was the younger one. Smoke was the older one.
Yeah, but he looked younger. Like he looked lighter.
He was more. He was more playful, and
yes,
Stack was the serious one. He was the one that was going to shoot you. He was the one that was going to stab you. And no, Smoke was the one that was going to shoot you and stab you. Snack was the player, the smiler, the charmer,
He was a pimp.
I wouldn't even say he was a pimp.
No, he said he ran women.
Well, probably in Chicago.
No. Yeah,
probably
he said he ran women. Mm-hmm.
And they also worked for Al Capone in Chicago.
Yeah, they worked for Al Capone.
They was in the military, got out the military, they was working for Al Capone.
Because they said, on the social media page of Sinners, they have articles posted.
Right, because there was an Irish
that happened that they were a part of.
There was Irish gangsters and the Italian mob were having a war.
Yes.
What he did is he robbed both of them.
Yes.
He robbed both
that.
of money and alcohol, and that's what he brought back to open. That's what they brought back to open the juke joint.
Right.
Yes. And Stack's love interest. Let's talk about her, Mary. Because Mary, they grew up together. Apparently, we just telling the whole daggone movie, but they grew up together. And Mary's maternal grandfather was half Black. So in my understanding, she's not mulatto. She's an octoroon. She's 1/8 Black. So she knew Black culture. She was accepted. Everybody grew up together. But she was white passing, like who's it? Your cousin or your uncle, Damon?
Well, I had a few of them. I had one, my uncle, the one that her playing my uncle. Then I had another one in the South we call cocaine, because that's how white she was.
Passing. She was white. I have cousins like that.
White passing ain't the word. When you call somebody cocaine, that was a nickname in the family.
They're pure white. They look pure white.
That's what we called her. We called her cocaine. That's how white she looked. I mean, straight hair, the whole thing, but she was Black.
I got that in my family. Blonde hair too, or red hair, like black blonde. with the red.
Well, my mother's side, my great grandmother was white, looked Irish, and my grandfather was blacker than the blackest night.
There you go. I mean, so she was able to, and when we talk about the vampires, so the vampires appeared as a white Irishman, the first one, but we didn't know he was Irish until later in the film.
Until he started doing that dance. Well, they had on the social media page, they had an article how this ship from Ireland came on shore and everybody was dead.
Yep.
So they were playing into the stories. They were posting these stories about but you didn't know it until you watched the movie. That he came over from Ireland.
Right, and he mentioned the missionaries, right, AJ? Mm-hmm. At the end of the film, he's like, the men that took my father's land forced these words upon us. And then he spoke in the Irish brogue.
Yeah. Well,
he said, they took our land, but these words still give me comfort. And that's a lot of people's relationship with Christianity. That's
two things real quick. So the scene where, I'm not sure if it was Stack or Smoke, stabs the head of the snake.
Yes.
And then the scene where he stabs the main vampire. There's a connection with that, of both of those things. Also, for my Christian brothers and sisters, the whole one's name, they were called Stack and Smoke, but one's name was Elijah Moore and the other one was Elias. Which are both the same person in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And the name means God is Jehovah. So there was a spiritual element in even their names.
Everything about it.
There was so many. See, we get caught on too long, and I'm glad we're having this conversation. Too long. see, we listen to what we get. We go to church on Sunday, and we don't do further research. We don't read the Bible and other biblical scriptures, and so we don't know. There's too many of us don't know. They're religious, but they don't have a relationship with Christ. Like they only know. Like my pastor always told me, don't go by what I told you. Go look it up yourself. Like, don't take my word for it. Look it up yourself. You have to do your own reading, and you have to read. And once you do that, you start understanding how it connects with other things. You understand what I'm saying? And you're less likely to look at this and be like, oh, I can't go to this because it's demonic. Like, I looked at this as a piece of art. First off, as an artist, as a writer, and as a music lover and a recording artist. So I looked at this as a great piece of art. This was a great script. This was a great cast. This was a great movie. It combined so many elements of so many things. And you literally do have to watch it over and over to get all of the meanings and some of those things. There's a couple of things I missed that I told Tasha I wish I could hit the rewind button. But you can't do that in the movie.
You have to see it again.
I saw it on the big IMAX, and I suggest for those who can, because everybody can't, but for those who can, do not just watch this on your computer or your phone or whatever. You have to see this whole thing in IMAX. It was filmed for you to see it in IMAX, so you can take all of it in. And you really have to experience in that. So for those who can, even if you saw it on the regular screen, I suggest that you go see it in IMAX. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean
Tasha, talking about the money part, the box office part.
Yeah,
this movie was $90 to $100 million, and there was talks about it would never recoup. In the first 2 weeks, it's recouped.
Yeah, and then some, and
it's already recouped. It's already at the break-even point, and they were worried that this budget they would never be able to recoup the budget of the movie. I'm just reading this in the AP and all the articles on it right now. From the trades and
seismic.
But why would they think that?
That's what they said. I was just reading it in one of the trades, and it's like, they didn't know if it would recoup. Not of course Ryan and them, the movie, the critics and the movie people, and they didn't know if it was going to recoup.
They're so short-sighted. It's the same thing with Kendrick Lamar. I don't want to talk about that a lot, but Black people are creating. We are in some very dangerous and dismal times. We're not very certain about our own citizenship. A lot of us, we're not very certain about our freedom, especially women with all of these rollbacks on reproductive health. And Black people are responding by creating. And the messaging that he gave us in this movie is, there's a thread to this thing that goes back all the way to Africa. And it comes by way of storytelling. That's what a griot is, a storyteller. He talked about the Choctaw storytellers who had a part in the movie. He talked about the Irish because the Irish were colonized. Like, the Irish American experience is very different from the Ireland Irish experience. The Ireland people remember that they were colonized. And a lot of times they side with
they was the niggas of Europe.
Because they feel oppressed.
Niggas of Europe. Absolutely.
So his people are the people that he wants to connect with again, the people that experienced the famine, which was man-made. The potato famine in Ireland was man-made because of some bullshit like tariffs. They were sending the potatoes outside of Ireland and starving the people there. But anyhow, so they have a history of colonization and fighting against the British Empire. And then they come over here, and a lot of Irish people were not accepted in America.
No, they were
not accepted. But when they assimilate, like all the immigrant groups do, except for the Black ones, and they try, but when they assimilate, then they get to claim this superiority over us.
Well, I don't think more so assimilation. they had cooperative economics. They worked within themselves. And then
So
they
did
built
we.
power. And
So
then
did we.
they end up taking over the police departments and
You
taking
know,
over
but you know the difference, Kasha? So I have this conversation a lot in other circles that are not us. Irish people could be Irish. Jewish people could be Jewish.
Mhm.
But if they all walk in the room and they don't have any items.
That's assimilation.
But no. I'm just saying, without doing it on purpose, without doing it purposely.
That's assimilation. They're whiteness.
They can just walk in a room and fit in. I will never walk in a room and not be black.
But not only do they fit in, they decide to uphold.
When there's no when there's no black person there,
to uphold whiteness. They decide to uphold being superior.
But when you take the black man out of the equation, they are tribes. Let's not get it twisted. When you take the black man out of the equation, the Jews are in one corner, the Irish is in one corner, the Italians is in another corner. When the only reason they come within their whiteness is when the black man steps into the room.
Because
when
we're not
in there, when you take us out of the equation, they are tribes. Don't get it twisted. Them Irish ain't feeling the Italians. They ain't feeling the Jews, and they ain't feeling that. The only time they come together, Tasha, is when the black man's in the room.
Well, that's the only time that matters to me. That's the only time that matters to me, because they get together and they assume the position of superiority.
Here's the difference. We don't come into the room with cooperative economics. We come into the room. Look, we don't come into the room. I'm talking about the whole thing. I'm not. Don't come on.
We're not talking about when we had these conversations. We're not talking about individuals
if we're talking about the whole, wait a minute, whoa. If we're talking about the
individuals, we're talking about the whole.
Hold it. Time out.
We're talking about the whole.
Hold on. Do we see an example of cooperative economics in this movie?
Yeah,
because that's what we're talking about.
No. The conversation was, if we come into the table, we're not coming in with cooperative economics. If you're talking about this movie, yes, there were cooperative economics within what Smoke and Stack were doing. Absolutely.
The whole thing was cooperative economics. All the black people were cooperative.
No, absolutely. But the reality of what the world we live in, that's a movie.
Well, but that's what we're talking about.
But we should be carrying on what the movie was doing. That's also a message.
We are talking about the movie, though.
Yeah, but the movie sends a message that we need to have cooperative economics.
So that was an example in the movie. That was an example in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we also saw an Irish man assimilate with white clan members over whiteness. They were able to identify with him. They did not want to hear from the Choctaw. They were trying to literally save their lives. But who did they align with?
Yeah, well,
the killer.
They
let the killer in.
They identified with him, and he knew how to get into their house.
Period. So that's what Irish people do. Yeah. You know, they come over here. The American Irish experience is very different than the experience in Ireland, and he wanted to connect with his people. And the gift that Sammy had was enabling him to do that, because Sammy was able to bring spirits from the past and the present, and that's what he wanted. That's all I'm saying. That's what he wanted.
That's the main person he wanted, because he wanted to.
Right.
He wanted to bring.
He wanted, it's not just his connection. Is the fact that the young man was raised in the church. He was also raised in the church. He wasn't raised like all the other Negroes that was out there.
He definitely wasn't like his cousins.
Exactly. So he had a blessing upon him that nobody else had in that party.
Right. That's right.
Nobody else had in that party. But that's also,
I like that.
That's also a metaphor for Black people. We are spiritual people. Whether you want to put the name of Islam on it, or Christianity on it, or Buddhism on it, or whatever you want to call it, our DNA. Come on, man, our DNA is rooted in spirituality.
We're spiritual beings by nature.
Exactly, and it's undeniable. It's undeniable.
And because of that spirit, we've survived the most outrageous and the most unsurmountable odds. And I want to get back to something Tasha said, because me and Damon were talking about this. You were talking about being creators and
we're creating.
Right. But we have to get to a point, we lose that and we forget. Everybody else knows that about us, but we forget that about ourselves. And in the times that we're living now, demand us to now tap into that, being that creative.
Absolutely.
It's time for us now to survive everything that's going on now. We have to create. And that's when Damon says stuff like, we don't have our own Black this, we don't have our own Black that. This is the time for us to excel in those areas. And as a people, for some reason, we're not always proactive, we're reactive, and we don't really step up and stand together till our back is fully against the wall, until everything is at stake.
I don't see it like that. I don't say, like, I always speak up because I don't see it the way you guys see it.
No, but we're not talking about you. I'm talking about as a people.
No, I'm talking about as a people too. I see Black people creating.
Tomorrow, if something happened, can you get 100 people to join you on town hall steps right there for a press conference?
I don't know. We were talking about creating.
But I'm just talking about,
I see Black people creating. I see, like, I'm going to celebrate this film. I'm going to celebrate, Michael B. Jordan playing two. Like, you would think it was two different people, the way he played these characters. I'm going to celebrate Wumi Mosaka being dark-skinned, being full-bodied. I'm going to celebrate the other sister. I'm going to celebrate that they brought the Chinese Delta experience into the story, and you got to see the segregated Mississippi South, where there were, one Chinese store. The wife's Chinese store was with the white people, and the husband's Chinese, they had two stores, and the husband's Chinese store across the street was next to a Mexican store and a Jewish store, because a
tamale place.
You know what I'm saying? And it was like Rosenthal ice or something like that. So the Jews couldn't be with the whites. Back to that assimilation piece. But I see Black people creating, I guess it's like what I am choosing to believe in and what's attracting me is future mind, is, what can happen, because I see people creating. I'm watching what Kendrick did. First, he dropped on Juneteenth. Then he dropped on the Super Bowl. We didn't know what to expect, but he changed the world.
Two things can be true at the same time. First off, you're talking to two creative people. Damon and I created this
exactly. We're here.
So that's one. But
I see Damon creating all day, every day.
But that doesn't take away. While that is true, what I said is true too. And two things can be true at the same time. We're not enough. We're relying on too many other things as opposed to creating our own stuff. And Damon talks about that a little bit. And I don't think people totally understand what he's saying about that. Yes, we have creative people. Yes, what Kendrick Lamar even did in the Super Bowl, most people still don't understand half of the things that was in that performance, the representation and stuff like that. Yes, we have creative people, but we as a people are too reliant on everyone else, and things have to get taken from us for us to be creative. When you had Black Wall Street and stuff, we had to do that because we wasn't allowed to do anything else. We couldn't go where the white man was. We couldn't shop at the white man. So we had to create. That was out of necessity. Since then, we got this, we can spend our money where the white man does, and we don't continue to support each other. And yes, I'm talking as a personal Black business owner too. Like, Black people don't support this. But we have to get things taken away from us and be against the wall for us to get back into those modes. And if we had kept this going, what Damon is talking about of economics or co-op, we lack some of that because we woke everybody in this room, everybody on this show right now, we woke up with all those rights that all those people that we talking about didn't have. They fought for all those things. We woke up, we had those. We don't know what it is to be without those things. In the 30s, that time period, they didn't have that. They didn't got what we got right now. You know what I'm saying? So two things can be true. We are celebrating the genius of the movie, the creativity. I started out talking about the genius of this man. I said it was a great film, a great cast, a great piece of art. Beyond that, I talked about the musical, the visual connection with the generations of music. It is a celebration of that, but we need to use that. We need to not just be entertained. We need to learn from that and do more of that. And I think that's where Damon is talking about that. We said we had these same conversations after Black Panther. We all went, we was all Wakanda forever, all that and all that and all that. But then we went back to the status quo. We have to learn from these situations, and we have to do more of that for ourselves. So while celebrating this is true, everything you said, it doesn't take away from what I just said either.
No. Clearly what I want to say is I just don't have the same vision. Like, I don't see it the same way. So totally validating how you guys see it. I just don't see it that way. I see Black people creating. And I'm out in the streets. I do, a lot of protests because I do that professionally as an organizer. But Black people are absent. We're figuring out our health. I see a lot of Black people doing that. I see a lot of Black people trying to do financial literacy, learning about investing. I see a lot of Black people trying to fix their diets. Like, I see Black people, reflecting and joining community with one another on how do we move forward with everything that's in front of us. I see Black people gardening. I see Black people, trying to figure out their businesses. I see
all of that is true. All of that is true. I just want to say we can move on. Let me just finish with, for every person you just said that's trying to be healthy, there's 100 unhealthy one of us. For every
I don't see it.
Wait. For every Rashad that's trying to teach financial literacy, there's 100 financially illiterate people in our community. For every person that's doing the garden, there's 100 people eating processed food and all of that. So, like, these are examples, but not the rule. And it does exist. And people, you probably have more of that in your inner circle. So that's what you see. And it can give you
a choice.
But
that doesn't change the reality.
It can give the illusion that it's bigger than it is on the broadest state. Being the editor-in-chief of Black Westchester, I don't just walk in my circle, I walk in all circles. So I'm in all the communities and I'm dealing with all the groups. You know what I'm saying? And I have to interact with all of them. So I don't just see what it looks like on my block, in my neighborhood, in my circle. You understand what I'm saying? I see places that they don't want me there. And like I'm able to interact with a lot of different people. And I see, what we need to do, and we need to do more. It's not that it's not being done. It's not that it hasn't always been some element of that. It's not that we always haven't had some of our most creative people are not making a living right now. Like, they're not doing this. They're so creative, they didn't get a chance to do this. You know what I'm saying? So they want to say something. And I want to go back into the movie, but I wanted to say that.
I think this is
yeah.
Go ahead, Tasha.
No, I can wait. Go ahead.
I think and this conversation is around the movie, because the movie has taken the movie is a representation of Black struggle, Black ownership, Black spirituality. right? We
Yeah.
have to own. If we're not going to make this pivot, and I think even the outside story of the movie on how Ryan Coogler did a deal, which is not new, right? It's
Right.
not. The other white writers and producers of films has his same deal, but I guess because it was a movie that was slept on and then hit the button, then they said, wait a minute, now all this money's coming out. Now he has this deal that it reverts back to him and his estate or his family 100% of the movie after 25 years. You know, that's a discussion on what we need to do as a people, not just in our circles. As a people, we have to start talking ownership, start talking owning things. No, I don't want to march for DEI in Target. I want to see a black Target. I want to see a black Walmart. I want to see some young brother or sister that's somewhere that's going to create a black Amazon. And we're going to take our dollars and we're going to use cooperative economics. We're not going to use white capitalism because we're working it out through what? Spirituality, the same like in that movie where everybody came together to make that night, right? If it wasn't for the vampires, everybody would have had one of the biggest pay nights that they had in their history of working, because they all did cooperative economics. When they picked up one of my favorite actors, and his scene was the movie when they wanted him to come on in, who played the bodyguard, come on in, but he had to get the permission, right? What did his wife say? Go get that money. She didn't care. Get up in that car and get that money, because we have to work in cooperative economics and not just on little circles, because we are a global economy. So we have to think nationally and we have to think globally. We got $1.8 million of buying power, and our dollar doesn't turn in our community with black businesses once. And that's a conversation, that we have to keep talking about, because our children is at jeopardy. The future of our kids is really at jeopardy.
I forgive me. I don't know where this is all coming from. I just really want to say that I think some of our path forward to be, better participatory in our own systems is all the things we talk about. Are people even well enough to be able to reflect? Are people, are people on drugs, which is social media, doomsday scrolling, the food, I think it's not within my practice to tell people what to do, because I have a hard time just dealing with myself on what I need to be doing. And coming on this show and talking about mental health, emotional health, social health, to me, is an approach that talks about like how to heal, not like what we're not doing. So I always do kind of speak up, like, if we're concentrating on what we're not doing, how do we get to where we want to go to? And I feel like if we want to go somewhere as a community, we have to be responsive and, collaborative and integrate with our own people. I never respond to anybody telling me what I need to do. Like, that does not make me motivated to do it.
Do you know how?
And nobody's saying that.
Do you know how similar?
That.
What y'all are both saying? Do you know how similar? Like playing moderator here.
Mm-hmm.
Damien is saying what we need to do. not what wasn't being done, what we need to do and how we need to work together and how we need to build stuff and how we need to create things in that situation. You're talking about that as well. Y'all are both like almost having the same conversation.
That's what I'm saying. Imagine if we had a culture. Imagine if we had, and I mean the Black culture itself. We had a culture of healing. We had a culture of real spirituality. And within that spirituality, it was a financial understanding, which the Bible teaches us if we're Christian, right? And even if we're Muslim, the Quran talks finance. And if you are Jewish, we know the Jewish religion and culture talks finance. So imagine, because Solomon, the whole book of Solomon is a book of financial, right? So imagine if we had that culture, that we had a spiritual healing culture, and within that culture, we are also discussing finance, because finance is part of your mental health. Most of our mental health breakdowns and the issues that we have around mental health is around financial issues.
Yeah, like to AJ's earlier point, when you're talking to people, when you're in the streets, like you see when people's, lights are dim, or when the elevator doesn't go all the way up, like there is a lot of unraveling and unteaching and unlearning and replacing it with, new learning, which includes a lot of discipline and habit forming that goes into the conversation about how Black people deal with money. There is a such thing as financial trauma, and I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that, like, the way I have found success in motivating people to change is getting in there with them and not telling them how deficient that they are in whatever it is they're trying to do, because Black people, like, people don't respond well to that. Like, it's almost like I stopped telling white people like how racist they are. It's like I'm not gonna tell them no more, because that word alone triggers a shutdown. And all I'm saying is, like, when I look to like community, and when I look to how do we survive this current environment where billionaires are literally robbing us and taking our information, like, and if they could re-enslave us, they will. Like, how do we survive that? To me, it is seeking out the brilliance and the opportunities, with my own people, but with the other people too, because sometimes my people are the people that are not anti-trans, and they're not always Black. Sometimes my people are the people that are pro-woman, and they're not always Black. So, like, how the way I see going forward is to get in community with people. And when in community with people, I don't take the position of you need to do this and you need to do that. That's just like my personal approach toward building community with people.
So we're not going back and forth just on that, and taking it back to the movie, and a couple of points that you made when you asked the question of, was it a horror film or something? So he answered that question in many ways was his rebellion against the system. I wanted to make a film that kind of raging against the concept of genre. He said,
that's right.
Making the audience constantly question while they were watching it, whether genre was a music angle or a film angle. Secondly, talking about cooperative economics. So he did his first film with Michael B. Jordan, and then they continued to do great films together. And this time it became a family affair where his wife and his producing partner helped bring the vision into production while being 3 months pregnant.
Yeah.
So, you know what I'm saying? So, like,
and they already have two children. This is their third.
Right, just their third. That's the three. I'm not sure how far along she is, but this is their third child. That was the three. But they working together, and they did this together, and they put this great thing together, and building on the relationship that he already had with Michael B. Jordan. and keeping that relationship and building, because Michael B. Jordan has grown through all of these movies. We've seen him from that little boy grow into a star with Ryan Coogler's camera. You understand what I'm saying? Like, they grew up together in the game, and that's how you have success. Unfortunately, that's not always the case with us working together in a lot of situations, but we need to see more of that. And this film should inspire that. And we need to watch. You're talking about not telling people what to do, but we need to watch when we have examples like that and be inspired to do that. And that was the great thing about this film. He said that their partnership was spiritual and professional.
Yeah.
Saying, it was like, this was the best thing they could have done. And what they created, and then the business part that Damon's talking about, this widely discussed deal that you don't hear a lot of us talking about, and a lot of people before him not doing, that look like us, like it's not unheard of, but it's very rare.
It's very rare for someone like us.
Right. So you can make the film you want to make, not the film they tell you got to make. You can tell the story you want to tell, not the story they say is the only thing we'll go see. And still get a deal like that, and still keep it in the family, producing it with your wife and the actor that you grew up in this game and came up with. Like, all of those elements should be celebrated and should be looked at and should be inspiring people that are listening to this conversation to move more like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yep,
This ain't telling people what to do. This ain't saying,
right.
This ain't putting people down. This is supposed to inspire. And just in case you missed that, that's all the things that it took to make this amazing thing happen. And all of those things that you're talking about and things that Damien are talking about are all a culmination of this movie and the result of it. And I wanted to pull that back in, because we were getting off into certain things. All of that matters, and this film deals with all of that, and even how the film was put together.
Right. And in one interview, he said people forget that he brought over $2 billion to the box office already. So why not?
Already?
Why am I not?
Not even 40 years old yet.
I walked in the room making the deal for Sinners as already bringing $2 billion to the box office.
Yep.
So why wouldn't I make a deal like this? And
That's
right.
And
see, and this is how we must be when we come to the table. We have to have that confidence and slight arrogance.
He believed
when we come to the table.
He believed he deserved it.
But we also got to come to the table established. That's what I was saying.
He had a track record.
Right. But he was that was my point. He came to the table with saying, look, I already made the industry $2 billion.
Right.
We have to come to the table. We have to come to the table the same way. As a collective group of people, we still haven't had the understanding to come to the table with our $1.8 trillion spending power.
I think a lot of us are coming to that understanding, and I think some people will get left behind. Because it's a decision. It's just like, Christ is a gentleman. He's not going to force anything on you. People have to make decisions to participate in their own life in a way that helps them or hurts them. Yes, there are issues with emotional dysregulation. Yes, there are issues with mental health. Yes, we know we are disease-ridden. There's depression. There's a lot going on. And with these pieces of art that our Black artists are dropping, they're doing their job. They're the griots. They are the griots. Ryan, Kendrick, Beyonce, all these people that are messaging, and they're breaking records also, accidentally. They're just trying to get the art out there. You know, Cowboy Carter won for country album. Beyonce was surprised because they gave her so much help. But she's a Texan. Why wouldn't a Black Texas woman who is music make a country album?
You want to hear something funny? So we talk about vultures, Damon. We talk about culture vultures. We talked about the representation of vampires. There's an article, Hollywood execs fear Ryan Coogler's Sinners deal could end the studio system.
And wouldn't that be a good thing?
Like, do you hear? So, like, the vampires drain the lifeblood out of us, of our talent and all this other stuff, and they make money. Now, Ryan has flipped the script with this deal, and there's concern that it can end the studio system as they know it. You know
Isn't
what I'm
that something?
That you can't hear you.
I said, isn't that something?
No. And that's crazy, because this is the fear. This is how they create fear, right? Oh my God, this Black man got this deal, and it's gonna ruin the whole movie system. Because one Black man, what is going to do?
Here's another headline. Here's another headline. Ryan Coogler's Warner Brother deal could revolutionize the creator economy, but destabilize the entire Hollywood studio system.
Good.
Like,
no, good. We know they've been robbing us.
And these are the trades that are saying this is not just regular laws.
It still won't happen.
Right.
It still won't happen, because they still control the distributions, and they can still control the movie theaters, right? See, we haven't even. That's a whole nother conversation that I don't even want to get into right now. But it still won't happen. But they're creating fear. Now, they didn't say nothing like that when the two white boys that create the Avengers and now creating the Doomsday and Endgame and all that was one of the highest grossing films, even more than Ryan Coogler. And
did they have the kind of deal that they have? Did they have a kind of deal like that?
Well, they probably never did a deal like that.
Right,
but the amount of money
is about the deal. It's about the deal, not
exactly. But what I'm saying is the amount of money that they bring in, they could step in and take that deal too. But at the end of the day, these businesses are making money. They're making just as amount of money from these deals. And a lot of times, and I really didn't look at it, AJ, and you could look at it. How much did Ryan Coogler take up front? Or did he put his own money in to make the movie and then come to them for distribution and what? We have to be clear.
I have to look at that
right.
too.
We have to be clear on that. Right, because he might have took his money. Only one that I know that takes his money to make movies, win or lose, is Francis Ford Coppola. Right. He puts his own money in the film and then go to them.
So I wanna because we like to keep these
Oh yeah, and I just want to add something.
We didn't get to any of the links. We didn't get to any of the links.
What links?
That way
I forgot all about links.
Huh? In the Google Docs.
We are talking.
We had a great conversation though, and I want to leave it. So Tasha, this was your brainstorm to bring this conversation to light. I think it was a very.
I got one more thing before we end.
I wasn't ready to end. Go ahead.
Marvel's gonna have a problem. Blade is dead.
Oh, that's the so. I did research that after you said so. This Blade made this movie possible. Ryan Coogler was involved in that at one point and did so much research, and it never came to be. And then his wife approached him about this movie, and he utilized a lot of that research he did that he was going to use in Blade for this movie. And
he set it up. He set it up because the mid-credit scene is in the 90s.
Right. So
if he wanted to, if they were to make him a deal, he already set it up where Stack is in place and could fight Blade.
Right. But the thing is, what Damon's talking about is with all of the delays and with Wesley Snipes showing up in Deadpool with that line, and they were talking about all the Daredevils and all the other ones. He's like, nah, there's
There ain't
only
gonna
been
be
one
no
Blade.
Blade. There was only one Blade. Ain't gonna be no
Blade.
Blade.
There's only been one Blade. There's only ever going to be one Blade.
That resonated so much with the fans. It's going to be hard to do a Blade movie without Wesley Snipes. And then with all the delays for the last couple of years, this movie was so successful, it may make a Blade movie non-necessary at this
No,
point.
they're not. I think they're just gonna go right straight to a Midnight Suns and just have Marshall Ali play Blade in the Midnight Suns. They ain't gonna do no. This put the nail in the coffin to the Blade movie. I don't care what people say. This has put the nail in the coffin to the Blade movie. They took too long because when they were talking about Blade,
it was self-inflicted from Marvel. Marvel's did this to themselves.
Right, because they took too long. And this is another reason sometimes why you don't have an artist or actor involved in the writing. Because part of it is Marshall Ali didn't like none of the scripts that came out. And it is what it is. But now, after the Deadpool movie with Wesley Snipes coming back as original Blade, and now after this movie, I think Blade is done. He's just going to come in one of these movies and be Blade. Ain't going to be like original movie Blade, because I don't think no new Blade is going to top the Wesley Snipes Blade.
So
it just won't happen.
I want to round things off, coming full circle back to the movie, and Damon, what are your last words? And then Tasha, I want to give you the last closing, because this was your vision and why you wanted to do
man,
this.
I'm good. I'm just listen. It's over. It's the great movie, wonderful movie. It was the Blade Killer. It's the Blade Killer.
So Tasha, I want to hear from you, going to why you were moved to have this conversation on your show. What did you get out of the movie? What do you think people should get out of it? And any parting words dealing with this movie that you want to leave people with as we end the show?
Well, I have a lot more to say than that. You know, I wanted to have this discussion because I believe this is a seismic shift in consciousness. I believe that the Black entertainers are speaking to us as our griots. When he made that connection from, and Delta Slim, Delroy Lindo's character said, you know, we brought this with us. And he tied our connection to not only African music, but African dance. And then that thread went through to the blues, to hip hop, to house. And then with the ancient presence of Asian and Chinese ancestors, they were dancing. They weren't singing. They weren't playing instruments. They were dancing. Then you saw like maybe a Spanish Afro-Latina, you know, dancing to Spanish music was in there. You saw a Bootsy Collins type, Jimi Hendrix / rock and roll comes from blues. You know, it just, to me, was so heartfelt. And I love listening to Ryan talk about his wife and how he's like, I can't do it without her. You know, she, like, where he's weak, she was strong, you know, and where she wasn't, you know, he would do his part. It was just a perfect time to come together, and the way they came together. Then he talks about his composers, a man named Ludwig, who I believe is Swedish or Finnish, or, you know, he's from one of those countries. And he made the connection of his father listening to blues music. The guitar that's in the movie is his composer's guitar with that silver circle.
Right. Read that, right.
So, you know, just listening to how they melded in the Choctaw experience of storytelling, the Irish experience of storytelling, the African experience of storytelling, how we had a clear and present danger with the vampires, but also with the Klan. Right. And I like when it wasn't like so on the head, because there's some movies and they talk about the horror, like Them or Underground Railroad, where, you know, it was a horror movie, but it was also like the racial terror was so horrific. And like torturous that was also as heavy. So in this, I felt like the racial element, you know, that was light work. You know what I mean? It's like after fighting the vampires all night and watching your brother and your wife die. Like Stack was like, you know, I'm gonna take all of y'all out. This is easy. And then he was ready to go. I love the symbolism of the relationship with the women. Mary, who was white passing, she said she never wanted that white husband. And they call him an Ofe. I learned that from Malcolm X. She never wanted to even be white. She just wanted him. And they ended up together forever because, you know, she turned him into a vampire. There's just so much, like, I've seen it 4 times. I probably will see it maybe one more time. But the spirituality piece that, you know, I hear coming from people that might come through the Christian experience, all I would like to say to them, talking about, you know, Black people who may or may not make it this go around, is reflect on the stories that you have heard come down in your family. And I think if every Black person does that, we'll find a little bit of everything in those stories. A little bit of everything. And I guess I could wrap it up with that, because we are all sinners, and that is scripture. That is showing up scripture. So what about the fact that we are all sinners are people not understanding? Yes, there was adultery in there. The women created adultery just as much as the men did. We didn't even get to talk about, you know, the presence of munching and crunching, which is refreshing, you know, to see in movies that this is a part of our experience. We didn't get to talk about very much the representation of Black women, dark-skinned beauties that were leads, which is not always the case. So I feel like it's a love letter to Black culture. I feel like it's you know, pay attention, wake up. You know, what are we really even all talking about? You know, like a lot of people excuse a lot of things that happen in the church. You know, I know, we all know all the stories. And we just pretend like that's not going on, but then we're going to point the finger outside the church at somebody else. It's to me, it is not time well spent.
So there's a
and Jesus was always with the sinners. He was never in the church.
So there was so much more that we could have talked about that we didn't. I think we had a powerful conversation, and there's a saying, always leave them wanting more. So
yes.
You know what I'm saying? I don't, instead of prolonging this and we saying some of the same stuff over and over, I would like to leave a lot of things were said, a lot of things were addressed, a lot of things that need to be unpacked. And I would like the audience to be able to unpack that. And I would like to leave them wanting more. So this has been another episode of Black Westchester Presents Elevation Nation with my sister, Tasha Young. Tasha, thank you for inspiring the conversation, because even in it, even in the conversation, and because I went to the movie, I wanted to build that lineage of blues music from African roots to hip hop, and I'm working on a new book, and it was inspired by you pushing this conversation. So I thank you for that, and I encourage everybody to support and tune in every Monday when she does her show 6 to 8. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, you like.
Yes.
If you like what you heard, share this with everybody else. That's how it grows. We have these spaces so we can have these conversations. We're not always going to see everything on the same from the same lens, but it's in the multiple lenses that make for conversation, and that's what I was looking for. And hopefully we brought that to you tonight, and you continue to tune in. Black Westchester Presents Elevation Nation with Tasha Young every Monday. I'm AJ Woodson. That's my partner, Damon K. Jones, publisher of Black Westchester. And until next time, peace.
Peace out.
Are you ready to transform your life from the inside out? Join Tasha Young on Elevation Nation, your guide to total wellness and personal evolution. You are about to discover powerful strategies for healing across 7 essential dimensions: physical vitality, emotional balance, mental clarity, financial freedom, social connection, sexual wellness, and intellectual growth. This is more than self-help. It's self-elevation. Watch Elevation Nation with Tasha Young, exclusively on Black Westchester magazine, the news from the Black point of view. Your journey to wholeness starts now.